Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Traditions Homestead. Well, we have a bit of a problem here on the homestead. Luckily, we've been blessed with a gorgeous day, and I think it's a problem that will be pretty easy to take care of.
The problem is all of our compost is disappearing. Now, at the end of the summer last year, when we pulled out all of the plants from the garden and the greenhouse and things, we put them in a compost pile right here, and we added some bedding and those kinds of things. But in the meantime, we have allowed our chickens to free range out here in this garden area inside the moat area, and they have scratched up all of our compost and it has flown everywhere, and now it's gone.
Right. So today we are going to start on building a much better composting system, because actually what's also happened is that not only have they pretty much destroyed this compost pile, which is fine, we'll be able to scrape this up and still use this compost, but now they're kind of bored with that, and they've moved on to scratching in our raised bed gardens. Now, I know what you're saying. Didn't you cover the raised beds over winter? Yes, we did. Until we got a huge windstorm that blew all of the covers off. Now, we've commented to ourselves several times throughout the winter that we've had some really strong winds and the covers have stayed on these raised beds. You guys, the night that these actually blew off, I mean, it was like, I don't think there was anything going to keep them on that night. So it wasn't the fault of the covers or the way we put them on. It was just an extraordinary kind of night that blew them off.
So since then, our chickens have found it very fun to jump up into those nice raised beds with amazing organic compost in them and scratch all around. But in the meantime, they're like scratching the compost out of the raised beds, and we're losing soil. We're like moving backwards on progress here.
Right. So today our project is to create a composting system that will allow the chickens to still do what they want to do, which is scratch around in compost, but will contain it in a way that we can still have it easily available for us to use when we want to use it.
So we've already come up with a plan to figure out how we're going to do this to build a new composting area, and we are going to bring you along today as we build that.
All right, so let me go over what the plan is, or what the plan in our head is, and hopefully it all works out as we start building it today, so that you guys have a little idea of what we're doing. Now, one thing I realized we didn't mention earlier is, why are the chickens in this area anyway? Don't we keep them in our chicken moat area? And the thing is, over the winter, we always allow the chickens into this area. This is where we have our orchard and our garden and all of that. That way it gives the chicken moat area some time to rest, and it also gives the chickens a little more freedom over the winter to get around in this area and scratch around and everything else. That's why they were able to get into the compost pile and scratch it all up. The one thing I can say about that is, because they did that, that stuff is broken down way faster than any of our other compost piles, which is why I think this is going to be a great system, what we're building today, and we may end up building several of these as time goes on. So we've learned from many of our mistakes over the years when it comes to composting. The main thing that we've learned, especially here in Missouri, is that all of our compost piles, if we don't stay on top of them like a lot, get grown up with crabgrass. It doesn't seem apparent this time of year because everything's dormant right now, but in the spring and summer, the crabgrass actually grows from underneath the compost piles up through it. And then you're at kind of a dilemma. Do you use that compost with the crabgrass roots in it in your gardens and introduce that into your gardens? Or do you not use that and maybe use it for something like compost tea or something instead? So today we are going to start this project by putting down some weed fabric in hopes that we will keep that crabgrass out of this compost bin that we're making. So the plan is going to be, we're going to roll out a piece of this 15-foot wide weed fabric. We're going to roll it out probably about 7 feet. This composter is going to end up being 13 feet wide by 6 feet deep. We're going to use cattle panels on the sides that are then going to be covered in some fencing that has smaller holes so that it will help contain everything. The cattle panels, as you probably know, are about 5 feet tall. Those will be what are on the sides. We'll be using the fence here, the chicken moat fence, as the back, also covered in that same fencing with the smaller holes. And then along the front, we're going to be using some metal roofing. That is shorter, and it will allow the chickens to be able to jump in and out of this compost area easily, but it's tall enough that when they scratch everything around, it should still stay in here and be able to be composted. So that is the plan. Hopefully it all works out. We won't know until we get busy building. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to roll out this weed fabric. Again, this is 15 feet wide. We're going to attach it here by the fence with some staples, and then we're going to roll it out to about 7 feet.
This roll of weed fabric is actually like the end of a roll that we had used previously. So we didn't have to go out and buy this. This is just something extra that we had laying around.
Yeah, in fact, this entire project today is just, we're making it out of stuff we have because we have the stuff, and we just thought that this was going to be a good plan. So it's my favorite kind of project when we don't have to spend any money. All right, we'll roll this out to about 7 feet. That way it gives us about a foot longer than what our composter is going to be. The best way to cut this weed fabric is with a torch. That way it seals up the ends as you cut it. Just make sure you don't light the grass on fire underneath it, or you melt your whole piece of weed fabric. There we go. So that is going to be about the size of our compost bin, and I think that's going to give the chickens a lot of room to scratch around and take out their frustration on the compost.
Now that the weed fabric is down, you just need to put more of these landscape staples all around and make sure it stays in the ground.
Now that our weed fabric is down, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use some of this green plastic fencing that we have. You guys, we've had these rolls. I think I've brought these. Honestly, I think we had these in Arizona, and I brought them to our first homestead in Missouri, and I brought them over to this homestead, and I've always just like had them up in like the rafters of a building or something, and I've always known that someday they would come in handy for something, and here we go. Finally, we're going to use them today. So we're going to roll this out. We're going to cover this piece of fence back here with this. And then we're also going to cover the 2 pieces of cattle panel that we're going to use with this as well. Now, I know this isn't going to prevent every little bit from escaping out these 3 sides, but it will, because the holes are only like 1 inch by 1 inch. It will prevent a lot of it from escaping out, especially while it's still, before it's completely composted down. But it will also still allow there to be good airflow, which is what we really want. We want there to be good airflow in the compost. So this is what we're going to use because we have it. If I had something with a little bit smaller holes, I probably would have used that, but I think that this will do just fine. So we're going to roll this out, and then we're going to also cover the 2 pieces of cattle panel with this as well.
So we are going to roll out this first section of this green fencing. We're going to roll it out to 13 feet because that is how long the metal roofing piece is that will be on the front, and so that is how long this composter is going to be. We're just going to cut this with the scissors.
Yeah, that's one nice thing about this plastic fencing is it cuts easily.
The next part of the project is to put up the sides here. You can see here we have, this is a cattle panel. Cattle panels typically come in 16 feet lengths. This one actually we had used for a different project and had cut it to 10-foot lengths. But we're going to use this at a 6-foot length. So we're going to be cutting this panel, 2 different panels, into 6-foot lengths so that we can use them.
After we get them cut, we'll be covering them with the same green material, putting in a few T-posts, and then putting them up to basically build a box right here. And these short little pieces, we'll save these because we'll probably use them for something else in the future. Don't you love it when things work out? We picked this spot right here to build this composter just because it was kind of a level spot. We didn't measure out where the T-posts were or anything. We knew that that piece of metal roofing that we're going to use at the front was 13 feet long, so we needed this to be 13 feet. You guys, we have 2 T-posts here that are exactly 13 feet apart, and it wasn't planned at all. It's just kind of nice when things just kind of work out. So that means at the back here, we don't need to add more T-posts on these side pieces. We can just wire these side pieces to the existing T-posts and then just put 2 new T-posts on each side and we'll be done. So I love it when stuff like that happens. Doesn't always happen, but it's nice when it does. So we're going to just use some old electric fence wire to attach these side pieces to these T-posts at the back. I'm going to just put 3 basically loops around here, and then we're going to put our 2 T-posts, 2 new T-posts on the sides. The goal here basically is we just want to build a big box out of the fence and these pieces of cattle panel. All right, so we've got those attached now at the back. The next step is to put in our T-posts. I'm going to get the T-post driver fired up and we'll just get these put in and attached and we'll be ready to start putting some compost in here. All right, you guys, we have basically our 3 sides done. I think what we're going to do now is we're actually going to bring over some of the material that we're going to put in here. I don't know if you remember, we did a video probably, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, a couple months ago sometime, about building a big composter out of an IBC tote, like a 300-gallon IBC tote. And the plan was to, fill it up with stuff, be able to flip it over with the tractor and basically make a big tumbling composter. Well, we run into a bit of a problem with that. Not that it doesn't work, because it does work. The problem is because we've had such a wet, nasty winter so far, we're producing so much dirty straw and bedding from our dairy cows that we've filled that thing up way faster than we ever thought we would. So I think that system is going to be good during times of year when we're not producing so much stuff to put in it. But this time of year, when basically it fills up faster than you can flip it and compost it down, it's just not working out. So it has worked out really well to be able to have a place to throw all of that dirty bedding, but instead of flipping it and all of that, we're just going to bring it over and we're going to empty it into this area with the tractor so that the chickens can start scratching around in it, and I think that will break that stuff down even faster. So before we put the front on, before we build the front, we're going to actually bring some of that stuff over and start filling this up. Well, I think that worked actually pretty darn well. It turned out better than I thought. We're going to have to move that stuff just a tiny bit inside of the new composter, but for the most part, we got everything over there safely. That was heavy. That was heavier than a bale of hay. I can tell by the way it affects the tractor. And our bales of hay are about 800 pounds, so I bet this was about 1,000 pounds. So um, thank the Lord for the tractor, is what I'm saying in that situation, because we would have never been able to move that otherwise. All right, I'm going to switch. I'm going to take my bale spikes, these spikes, I'm going to take these off the tractor. We're going to put the bucket of the tractor on, and then we're going to use that to scoop up that compost pile that was over there that the chickens have scratched all around. We're going to scrape that up, add it to that as well, and then we can start building the front section. Well, looks like the chickens have already figured out what their new job is and what their new entertainment is. That's good. That's exactly what we want. I do want to spread this out just a little bit, and then we'll bring over the rest of that compost that they've been scratching around in already, and then we'll build the front, and then they can do their job and make us all happy. So we've decided that before we put the rest of that old compost pile in here, we're actually going to build the front first, so that if the chickens start going in here, they don't just kick all this right back out. We want to have the front on here. So this piece of metal roofing is what we're going to be using for the front. This was left over from when we added a lean-to onto the side of our workshop. And I think it looks nice because it kind of matches our raised bed garden, so it doesn't look too bad. So we want this to be easily removed, so we've got a plan for what we're going to do. We're going to drive some metal poles into the ground, and then we're going to be able to put, smaller poles in those so that we can take them out when we need to get in and out of here with the tractor. That may not make sense, but it'll make sense as we start to do it. All right, so we've got some of our poles cut. What I did is I cut an extra piece, and this is what I'll use. I'll pound this into the ground, and then I'll pull it back out, and then I'll put a fresh piece in there, and that will give us a nice clean hole for our smaller pole to go inside of. Hardest part's going to be getting through this weed fabric. Now, our smaller pole will fit right down in there and hold that nice and tight. I think that'll work out really well. All right, we've got all of our small pieces cut now. I'm going to go ahead and put the ones that go on these inside holes in their place. This last one ended up being a little short, but that's okay. All right, now we can put our piece of roofing up, and then we'll put the...
That's an inside one.
Oh, it is out. That's an outside. All right, now we can put our piece of roofing on, and then we'll put these outside poles on and see if it holds it in place.
Let me pick it up. There. There, that's good.
Look at that. I think that's perfect. I think that's going to be perfect. And we'll leave just this little opening here at the end for the chickens to be able to get in and out. And yes, I know that that might mean some compost could spill out the end there, but I'm fine with that. You guys, I think this is turning out to be a pretty awesome project. I am going to jump back on the tractor so we can scoop up the rest of that old compost pile. We'll put that in here. And then I think we'll kind of move out of the way and see if the chickens will come back in here and start spreading it around.
Well, you guys, this is looking amazing so far. Gosh, we have this, I'd say like a third to a half already filled up. I'm so excited for the chickens to be able to get in there and scratch around and help us compost this down into some really amazing soil for us to use in our raised beds and our buckets in the greenhouse. What we're gonna do now is we are gonna just kind of back away from here a little bit and see if the chickens are gonna be interested enough to come in here, figure out their little doorway and start scratching around. And in the meantime, we are gonna go rescue the covers for these raised bed gardens that have flown off in the storm. And we're gonna start putting those back on, reattaching them so that the chickens can't get in there anymore. Hopefully, by the time we're done, they've already found their way in here and are scratching around doing their job.
Look at this. They're right back into the raised beds. We're just about ready to start putting the covers back on. They need to go find the new compost pile.
Yeah.
I did want to show you guys though, just look how amazing this compost is doing in these raised beds. I'm really glad that we decided to do this in the fall and let them rest over winter. I think by the time we get to spring and are ready to plant in these, it's going to be amazing. All right, we need to get to work because I just grabbed a rake and smoothed all these back out and now they're right back in. It's so frustrating.
They have no shame. Absolutely no shame. Out, out, out. Out, out, out. Go on.
There's a lot of vines still on. Well, the gardens are all covered back up. We did end up sprinkling a little bit of chicken feed on the compost pile to entice the chickens to go in there, because once you know it, they kept going back to the old compost pile that I scooped up instead of to the new one. But I think as soon as they figure out how much fun it is to be in this one, they're going to spend most of their days in there.
I think that this is an opportunity for us to make some really great compost, probably quickly,
Right.
since we won't really have to turn it very much because the chickens are going to take care of that for us. If this works out well, we might put more around here.
Right. Yeah, I really think instead of, kind of making the same mistake we did with that big IBC tote one where it fills up so fast that it almost becomes unusable, this one, I think we can put more in there for sure, because once they spread this out, it's, and it breaks down. But instead of filling this so full, we'll probably build 2 or 3 more of these. And I think that is going to be a really great way to, make compost in a more efficient way than we've ever done here on the homestead.
But what do you guys think? Do you think that the compost is going to break down faster because the chickens are in there? Do you think this is a great idea, a horrible idea? Make sure you let us know in the comment section below. You guys, we're so happy that you spent some time with us today outside. It was a beautiful day. Now
Can you
it's a
believe
little...
I'm out here in a t-shirt it's already almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the 1st of February,
Right.
and I'm out here in a t-shirt? Crazy.
Yeah, it is getting a little cooler now that it's cloudy and it's getting toward the end of the day, but still a gorgeous day.
So you guys, thanks so much for spending the day with us building this new composter. We really are excited, not only for this composter, but for this upcoming gardening season. I know it still feels like it's a long ways away, but you guys, we've been staring at these raised beds since last fall, dreaming about what we're going to put in them all. I'll let you know in a little secret, we do have a plan already of what's going to go in every one of these raised beds. We're going to be sharing that with you shortly. So you guys, thanks for spending the day with us. We are always so happy when you do. And as always, remember that the absolute best way that you can help us here on the homestead is just by sharing our videos. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care, and God bless.
God bless.